Well, thank you for the introduction, and thank you all for being here. It is a huge honor for me to be standing here amongst all of these amazing speakers and participants. Thank you for introducing myself. I would also like to say a couple of words about animal equality. So we are an international organization that is active in 8 different countries and on 3 continents. And we do, amongst other things, public education, outreach campaigns and investigations. And we will also launch a corporate outreach department, an international corporate outreach department this year. I was asked by the organizers to give a talk about the methodology of the work of animal equality and what I believe and what ACE believes makes us an effective organization. And I'm going to do that, of course, but I would also like to see how our approach, or at least parts of it, can be used by each one of you, whether you're part of an organization or whether you're being active as individuals. Before we really get started in talking about the tools and techniques that can make our activism more effective, I would like to tell you a personal story. A couple of years ago, I was doing an investigation into a pig breeding farm. And pig breeding farms kind of look like this in Germany, and I think in most other places of the world as well. So, the pregnant mother pigs are being kept in gestation crates, which means they cannot move more than a couple of centimeters back and forth. They can't run. They can't really stretch their legs. They don't see the sun. They never see the grass or feel fresh air. All they know is concrete floors, iron bars, and the sounds of the hundreds of other mother pigs grunting and screaming beside them. So, I have been in that farm already for 2 hours or so. It was about 4 o'clock in the morning, and I was exhausted. My lungs had started hurting from the smell of the ammonia and the dust and the dirt all around me. And I put my camera down, and I looked around me for a second, and I saw 2 pigs, 2 impregnated mother pigs, next to each other in gestation crates. And they were both kind of sitting on their hind legs, you know, like dogs do. And they had their heads moved towards each other. And their snouts were kind of touching. And they stayed like that for a couple of minutes, kind of consoling each other amidst of this hell that we humans have created for them. And I was just standing there looking at them. And it looked so incredibly sad. And I thought to myself, if I could take anybody at this moment, right here with me, to witness these 2 animals, to witness their pain, I swear that person would stop eating meat right this second. Now, a couple of years later, and thanks to new technologies that have evolved, we are a little step closer to making that dream, to making my dream back in that filthy pig factory farm a reality. We're still not able to physically bring everybody into farms and slaughterhouses, but we're able to virtually transport people inside these places to witness what animals go through on a daily basis. Virtual reality has completely changed the impact we have with our outreach campaigns. So people who have seen, or when we do street actions or at university campuses, we have found that the reactions after people have watched a video on a VR headset to be more moved, more sincere, and more open to changing their diets than when they would see a video, a conventional video, on a screen or on a tablet. And literally, nobody says that they don't care about how animals are treated after watching a video like that. And most people say that they want to change their diets. When we ask people, and you see what that kind of looks like when we do these actions. So this is a university in the United States, and we're showing people our iAnimal project on the virtual reality headset. So when we then ask people after watching this kind of footage about what they saw, they say things like, there was a mother pig giving birth, or I was standing inside a slaughterhouse when this and that happened. So they don't really speak about this kind of footage as if it's something that they've seen on a screen, but they speak about it as if it's something they've experienced themselves, so as if they themselves were present at the scene. And not only do the reactions differ when using virtual reality, but we're also able to attract a lot more people and also a different crowd of people to watch our videos and to receive our message. Because people are generally interested in this new technology. They want to try it out. So they come to our stall and they put on the headset, they watch the video, and when they take it off, all they speak about are the animals. We can, of course, use this technology as organizations, but I think also as individuals. I think everybody can share 360-degree videos on Facebook or YouTube, for example, or if we want to use the similar technology, people can use cheaper cardboard versions that work with basically every smartphone. So I think really this is a technology that everybody, every single person who's doing activism can use. Now, as I've said before, I think one reason why virtual reality is working so well for our activism is that it's a new technology, so people get excited about it. And I'm going to ask you a question. So, who of you still remembers the first cell phone they ever had or they ever used? I would say that's basically everybody in this room. And who still remembers the first time that they've watched a 3D movie in a movie theater or something similar? Yeah, I would say that's more than half, definitely. So usually, the experience of trying something new for the first time, it sticks to our memories. So every time somebody tries a VR headset for the first time, it is very likely to be an experience that is going to stay in that person's memory for a long, long time. Let's imagine that all over the world, people will have their first experiences with VR being trapped inside a demonstration crate, or experiencing how a mother pig gives birth to her piglets, or standing in the slaughterhouse while an innocent animal's throat is being slit. Don't you think that it will be a lot harder to buy a steak at the next supermarket? Hi. At Animal Equality, we are still experimenting with this technology, so there sure are a lot of lessons to be learned, and we're at the very first stage of implementing this to our activism. But from what we've seen so far, the technology has great benefits for our cause. And right now, we are in the process of conducting a scientific study together with Phonelytics with over 10,000 participants to find out really what is the benefit of using this technology compared to conventional videos on tablets or screens. And also we want to find out exactly how many animals are being spared per person that watches this kind of footage on a VR headset. So hopefully we will be able to share these results with all of you soon enough, so everybody who wants to can use it for their activism and has reliable data that they can trust. All right, let's take a little step back and kind of start from the beginning. We are dealing with a huge problem here. Billions of sentient animals are being tortured and killed every year. And those are animals that are as lovable and smart and wonderful as our dogs and cats. And if we really seriously feel for these animals, and if we feel their pain, and if we promise them we will do everything we can to make this madness stop, I think we need to speak about the effectiveness and the efficiency and the impact we're having with our actions. If I as an individual have only 10 hours a week, let's say, to do activism, because I work and I have a family or things like that, so I have 10 hours a week to do activism, I'm going to make sure that I use that 10 hours as efficiently as I can, because there's a huge industry behind the animal exploitation that is not going to stop the killing just like that. So if I have 10 hours to leave a positive impact for animals, I should think about where I use that time to have the biggest possible impact and where I can help the most animals. That is why I, for example, would always suggest people that want to bring other people to adopt a more compassionate diet or to help animals through that, to focus on the right target group. Let's say, for example, if I can give out 100 leaflets in 1 hour, I would rather give these leaflets to a group of university students who I know are going to be very open to changing their eating habits and through that save a lot of animals or spare a lot of animals from a horrible fate. I would rather do that than, for example, giving these 100 leaflets to a group of local hunters who are probably not going to change their behavior and are definitely not going to save as many animals. And there are studies in the US that have shown that certain leaflets distributed to this right target group, so to, for example, university students, can spare one animal's life for every second leaflet distributed. And that is quite impressive, I think. Now, I believe that we need to spend our time on people and corporations that are most open to change. So we need to put our focus on the area where the most animals are being killed and exploited and where we can make the biggest difference with our actions. And from what we've seen and what other participants and speakers have commented as well on this conference, this seems to be the area of farmed animals and more specifically fish, poultry, and pigs. At least that's kind of the way it goes in Germany. Another thing I do believe we need to focus more on, especially as organizations, but also as individuals, is thinking about strategically targeting influencers. So instead of changing eating habits one by one, we can give out information to people who will then reach hundreds or thousands or maybe even millions of other people. Celebrities, for example, come to mind. When have you ever tried, I don't know, getting a celebrity to change their eating habits? That is, for example, the reason why we at Animal Equality, we're trying with our university campaign and with our virtual reality campaign, we are targeting the most influential universities in the world. So we're going, for example, to Harvard or Berkeley or the Humboldt University in Berlin or Columbia University. Because some of the people that are studying at these universities are going to be very influential decision makers in the future. So if we can target them now, and if they're going to change their diet, and if they're going to feel for the animals, that can have a really, really high impact in the future. Students, they are also very receptive to our message. So at Harvard, for example, 70% of the students who've watched our VR footage pledged to drop meat or to eat less meat afterwards. And these are the 70% are people that left their email address and said, yes, I'm going to do it. So a lot of people don't want to give us their email address. So it's probably even more people at the Harvard University that want to change their diet just after watching a 7-minute video. Now, there's also another thing that we need to take into account when we're doing outreach campaigns. And before we go into that, I'm going to see what you think again. Now, who of you knows the feeling or has ever experienced something like the new year approaching and doing a New Year's resolution? So something like, I don't know, changing your behavior to going jogging more often or quit smoking or something like that. Who's ever tried to change their behavior? Mm-hmm. A lot of people. Great. What kind of behavior change was that? Shout it out.
Giving up meat.
Okay, great. What else?
Getting out of bed in the morning.
Oh yeah, that's a hard one. What else?
Meditate.
Meditate? Okay. So it feels like these were things that you were motivated and excited about. They were things that you generally wanted to do. Now, let's see, how many of you know the feeling that the new year goes by, the months pass, and you haven't actually changed your behavior? Okay, great. Yes, quite a lot of people, and that is definitely not something unusual. Because scientists say that we often overestimate the ability of a person to do a certain behavior change. And I think that is definitely something in mind that we need to keep in mind when we want to bring people to change their behavior. We want to bring people to eat less meat or to go vegetarian or vegan. So we need to make sure that people actually do it. They're not just motivated, they don't just want to do it, but they actually do it. And there are some basic insights that we can take from extensive research that has been done on how to change the behavior or how we can get ourselves or others to change the behavior. And I think we can use these insights. So this research is mostly about behavior change, like eating more healthy or going jogging more often, but I think we can use it for our cause as well. So number one is, when asking people to do a change, don't just focus on the why, but also focus on the how. So instead of giving people only the reasons of why they should do this behavior change, so telling them about animals, showing them footage of animal cruelty, speaking about the environment, speaking about health benefits, etc., we also need to actually show people how to do this behavior change. That means giving guidance, giving recipes, telling them where they can buy the animal-free options and how they can cook them. So by increasing the ability of a person to do the change, that person will actually stick to it and be successful with the behavior change. So the reasons for that are a lot higher. And that is, for example, when we do our animal outreach projects, whenever we can, we give people a brochure after they've watched this horrific video, and this brochure will help them do the change. So if they're motivated, if 70% of the people are motivated to do the change, we give them the way and we show them how to do it. Now, number two we can take from the research for behavior change. If we want people to change their behavior, to stick to it, we need to create step-by-step solutions to help people make the transition to an animal-friendly diet. That means, for example, asking people to include small new behaviors into their daily routines. So, for example, for the first week, I would ask people to just replace poultry in their dishes with an animal-friendly alternative. Nothing more. Just try that for 1 week, get used to it, and let it be part of your routine. The second week, for example, we could ask a person that usually eats scrambled eggs in the morning, we could ask that person to just add another thing, to just replace scrambled eggs with scrambled tofu, for example, and get used to that behavior change as well. Make it part of your daily routine. So by changing something small and easy in our lives, we are far more likely to actually do the change, to actually be successful with it. And people are more likely to stick to a behavior if it's being learned step by step. Now, number three we can take from the research of behavior change is making sure that every step feels like a victory. So we are much more likely to achieve a behavior change if the whole process feels like something rewarding and positive to us. That means we should make people feel good and positive about the steps they're taking to reduce animal suffering, and we should make it an overall positive experience for them. And last but not least, we should make sure that people don't fail. So maybe you know that feeling. Some of you have said that they don't always stick to the behavior changes that they want to do. So every time somebody tries to do something positive for the animals or tries to change their behavior, and that person fails, that person is less likely to try it again. So instead we need to make sure that we take little but sustainable steps and that every step feels like a victory. Good. There's something else I want to mention that in my opinion plays a big role in why animal equality is, in my opinion, an effective organization, or how we can multiply our impact. And that is by prioritizing media and social media outreach. So there are studies like the Kansas study from the US that I'm sure some of you know that have shown that media attention to animal welfare issues has a significantly negative effect on US meat demand. And I would suppose that it's similar with social media, social media as well. So prioritizing media, for example, would mean for us as an organization, if we want to do an action in the street, we're going to think about if that action is going to be interesting for the media. And we will always call the media if we do an action in the streets, and we'll make sure they're going to be there if we can. Or if we're going to release an investigation, the media work around that investigation can take more time than the actual investigation itself, just because it is so important to finding the right journalists and to following the right media strategy if we want as many people as possible to learn about the way animals are treated in our society. And I would also not underestimate the importance that social media has. And social media has some great advantages over conventional media like TV and press. So over social media, like Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Snapchat, Twitter, and so on, we are able to not only reach people with our message, but we're able to reach these people over and over and over again. I'm sure many of you have heard the saying that an audience needs to hear a message at least 7 times until that message or idea is being adapted by this audience. So being able to reach people over and over again can have a great difference for our work. And another advantage of social media is that we really control the messaging. So when we have an investigation and we're releasing it to the media, we never really quite know how they're going to portray the facts and how they're going to speak about animals. You're laughing because you know it's true. So with social media, we are able to control the message. We are able to say, or to send the message that we want to send out. So by making always a social media and media a priority in our organization, and by making sure that we put daily efforts into social media, we as an organization with really a relatively small budget have been able to reach more than 2.2 billion people last year over media and social media work. So that was about 200 million people last year through media work, and about 2 billion reach for social media. And I think not only as an organization we can use social media, but everybody who has an account there is able to reach a couple of hundred people a day just by constantly using social media for our cause. Now, another definite factor of how we've increased our efficiency at Animal Equality is having an international approach. So working closely together in the 8 countries that we're currently present in does not only allow us to put pressure on companies in several countries at the same time, but it also increases the reach that we have in each country. Now, if, for example, we carry out an investigation in one country, then we can use that footage for our media work in other countries as well, and we can multiply the effect and the impact that we're having for animals. And we are also always making sure that all of our videos and important brochures, etc., are being translated, especially to languages like English or Spanish that have a very high number of native speakers. So we can make sure that we have the possibility to reach a high number of people with our work. Being international also gives us the possibility to allocate our resources to where it's needed most. And we can support groups and countries where, for example, we can't really do much fundraising, but we can do the fundraising in other countries, and we can do some of the work in countries where we have a higher possibility of getting great successes. So for example, our group in India would probably not have been able to sustain themselves just by being active in India. But by being an international organization, we were able to support them, and they were able to achieve great victories for animals. So they, for example, closed the border between India and Nepal for the biggest sacrifice in the world, and that has spared thousands of animals from really experiencing the most horrific death that we can probably imagine. Or they've also achieved a nationwide ban on foie gras with very, very little resources. Now another example would be that our group in Spain has done very recently released an investigation on broiler chicken hatcheries. And they've done amazing media work and social media work in Spain, but only because we translated everything they did and we did the work in the other countries as well, and especially in English, this video went viral and got over 50 million views already. Now, the last and probably most important thing, I believe, can make us more effective and help more animals is communication. So speaking with each other and learning from each other and generally being open to new ideas. So not discarding something just because it doesn't feel right at the first moment, but really being open to learning from other groups and from activists and admitting to failures and exchanging information about what works best and what works worse in our activism. And I mean, it's not all bad. So there's a lot of really, really amazing organizations and individuals who are willing to share their experience and who are willing to let us and others learn from them. And thanks to those people, and many of them are here today, of course, the world is a better place for millions of animals on this planet already. And gathered here this weekend alone, I mean, are hundreds of bright, intelligent people dedicated to being effective for animals. The ones we're fighting for, the countless animals that are suffering today in factory farms and slaughterhouses right at this moment, they have no voice in our society. They're suffering alone and neglected. And they are unaware of all of the people being gathered here this weekend who've made it their life's mission to speak out for them. And they have no way of thanking all of you for standing by their side. That is why I want to thank all of you on behalf of all of these animals out there. Thank you for not looking away. Thank you for bearing witness. And thank you for trying your best to save as many of them as you can. You are their only hope. Thank you for giving them your voice. Thank you.